Tenebrous Tingles.
Hello, and welcome to Tenebrous Tingles. I'm Zandi.
I'm Eve.
And I'm Grish.
So, as you can tell, we've got a special guest. We are doing Florida today, and since Grish is our friend from Florida, he's going to be joining us and telling us stories from Florida, maybe, kinda, something.
Just adding general Floridian delight to our Florida episode.
I'll do what I can.
He has often been told that he is a delight.
Is it you telling him
it's-
that?
No, I have a sticker that says I'm a delight.
Where is the sticker? Like, what did you put it on?
It was on one of my drink bottles, but now it's inside my little folio that I carry paperwork around at work in.
Oh, what a nice affirmation. You use that to remind yourself.
No, I actually told him, I was like, no, I'm glad I have a sticker that says so. It's right there.
It's permission for shenanigans.
No, that's the one that says, in my defense, I was left unsupervised.
It's a good defense, actually.
Yeah.
One on the door to my office says, I heard you, I'm just ignoring you.
I love that that's on your office. That really, it sets the tone for whatever meeting's going to happen.
Eve, what do you have for us today?
So I have a couple of stories. My first story is the Singing River in Ocala National Forest. And there's a really famous version from Mississippi about a vanished village and the way the water hums because of the events that caused that village to disappear. And this is not the same one. I had to really be careful that I was getting legends from the proper one because this is much less known. It's more localized. In the Florida version, the legend of the Singing River goes back to one Seminole woman who waits for her lover. And the legend is that she drowned waiting for him to come back to her and now still waits, singing for him. This is along sections of the Ocala River, which flows through the Ocala National Forest. The humming itself is not disputed at all. It's been recorded through oral legends for centuries and documented in the recent years when we started to write things down for the purposes of studying them by all sorts of people, scientists, naturalists, just, regular people having an experience there. What is disputed, though, is why there is the humming or singing sound. And the ghostly humming that is usually heard at night has also been attributed to natural acoustics, specifically the way the water flows through drowned logs and the root systems of the cypress trees and how it echoes off of the limestone. It creates this soft, it has been described as soothing, sometimes mournful by those who have heard it, like a lullaby. And it seems to come from the water itself. So the natural acoustics, it could make sense. I think more than one thing can be true. And whatever experience you have out there, should you get to have one, is valid. Is it a totally explainable natural phenomenon? Maybe. Is it the spirit of a woman who lost her love? Who am I to say yes or no? I will say that the very plausible natural explanations do not fully explain why the sound is so tone-like, why it sounds so vocal, or why it only happens intermittently, seemingly no rhyme or rhythm, pun intended, in the pattern. Like they can't pinpoint it to specific weather patterns or specific water flow. It's really just happening whenever it wants to. The Singing River legend, it has been recorded in Florida folklore collections, oral history interviews, and several write-ups for cultural history, tourism, and environmental purposes. So I had a lot of questions about the legend itself, like who was she, who was her lover, why was she waiting, how did she drown, all the questions. And since it did start as an oral history that was passed down through the generations, as those things sometimes do, there were stories that sort of branched off. There were several versions. What stays consistent through those versions is that she was a young Seminole woman. She waited for her lover who did not return, and that she drowned in the river, and her spirit is the voice that people hear. Her name has been lost to time, or maybe was never part of the oral story in the first place. The first variation, there were 4 that I found. The first one is that her lover was a Seminole man who had gone to fight in the Second Seminole War. He promised to return to her by way of the river. He never came back because he either died or he was taken prisoner, he was taken away. She still waited for him at the river's edge until she died. Some say she slipped and fell into the river, and some say she became overwhelmed with grief upon realizing that he wasn't coming back and walked into the river to be taken as well. In another version, she lost sleep in her vigilance for him and finally became so exhausted that she fell asleep near the riverbank waiting for him. And while she slept, the water rose and she slipped or rolled in and drowned silently while she, was asleep. In a third version, a fast-moving summer storm rolled in while she was waiting. The river swelled and currents intensified really quickly. She was not prepared and got caught in the water and pulled under the water. I don't know how violent a storm next to a river can be. Maybe. I don't know.
It can be pretty violent, and the water can be lashing you sideways
Yeah.
during
Yeah.
storms. I mean,
Plausible. And in the fourth and final version that I found, her lover ran away with someone else. And he made it clear to her that he never intended to return. She kept waiting anyway in the last place that she saw him, hoping for a change of heart. And over time, she grew weaker and more hopeless. In this version, she just walked into the river, and it said on a foggy night in every variation like this that I found. This one was the least common, but it always specified it was a foggy night. So maybe, there's a weather condition that has been consistent. There's always fog when there's the acoustics. I don't know. The sound of the Ocala singing is the one thing that skeptics and believers of the legend have all agreed on for generations. So the sound exists, and we just have all sorts of explanations for it.
very cool.
Yeah, I like that.
Why don't you tell us what you found there, Grish?
Well, unfortunately, I didn't find a lot, but I found several cryptids. That was what I was deciding I was going to do, but nothing really significant in terms of accounts of them. And it seems like, as with many things in Florida, we borrow a lot from other places, or they just move in. We've got the skunk ape, the wampus cat, and the Pensacola sea monster. The one that is the most Floridian is probably the skunk ape, which has apparently mostly been seen around the swamps of the Okefenokee and is partially based on legends from the Seminole and Cherokee that came down here. Not
The
from the
skunk
Miami
ape
tribe,
sounds
but
very Floridian.
it is very Floridian. It's mostly sort of the Floridian version of the Sasquatch or the Bigfoot. There was one guy that had several sightings, but the only sightings he ever had that were on camera were also sightings where he and his brother had gone out into the swamp. And the clips that I found looked pretty clearly like it was a person in a very hairy suit. So,
Like a ghillie suit?
not quite a ghillie suit. It was more like a Sasquatch costume, basically, with
Oh.
like redder hair than the normal or the usual sightings have been.
So it
Maybe
could just
a
be hiking.
bad Harry and the Hendersons cosplay.
Yeah. That's not what you wear when you go hiking. That's keeps you warm.
Hiking, sure, we'll go with that. It's one of those things
um,
that requires outside.
yeah,
Um,
right.
we also have the Wampus Cat, which is from Cherokee legend and is mostly from the Appalachian region, but has drifted down here along with the Cherokee that came down here. And that one, of two different origins for that one. One was a Cherokee woman was spying on medicine men that were doing some sort of men-only ritual, and when they found her, hiding under a cougar skin, they cursed her, turning her into a sort of woman-faced cat. It was very large and had 6 legs. Another one was a woman who was seeking vengeance for something, turned herself into it to get her revenge. But the specifics of that revenge were not available on any of the sources I could find.
What would it take for you to get mad enough to be like, you know what? I'm so upset with you. I'm going to turn myself into a cat to mess up your day. Like,
I mean,
I
if I
would
what?
had
probably
that
have to be
power,
very, very angry.
I wouldn't. I'd be like, bet, okay.
You wouldn't even need to be mad. You're like,
I would,
yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
It's go time.
Okay. So you would need to be very angry, Grish, yeah?
I would have to be very angry, yes.
Okay.
Although I'd probably have a lot of fun after the fact.
I mean, if you have it, you might as well use it.
Exactly.
Wait, can I turn back? I need that information
Sure.
before I know how. Okay, sure. Yeah, then I'm in. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the other one I found was the Pensacola sea monster that actually Zandi pointed me to. But the only account for that one was from the late 60s, where 4 young men, teenagers, went out swimming to the USS Missouri to do skin diving and just kind of explore the sunken ship. And they went out in a surplus military raft, one of the little inflated boats. When the weather turned bad, they were starting to get swamped. I believe the raft started taking on water, so they decided they were going to try to swim for shore, and they ended up catching a buoy that was out in the water, and then the one that survived made it back to shore, but the other 3 of his friends did not make it back. And
Oh
one of them,
no.
their body washed ashore later. The other 2, I don't know if they were ever recovered. And then several days after he got back to shore and got out of the hospital, all of a sudden he had this account of some sort of creature that had it looked like a telephone pole coming out of the water with the light, kind of like an anglerfish sort of. And then it like dipped into the water and disappeared. And he said he heard one of his friends screaming, and then he saw another friend like a mouth come out of the water and then pull them under. But this was also several days after the fact, and there was apparently some people thought it might have been there were like methane bubbles that was causing hallucinations, or it was just him being panicked and in the water and fearing for death and just having a complete psychotic break. That was the only account of the Pensacola sea monster that I could find.
If you lived in Pensacola, did you see any giant anglerfish eat anybody?
No, not that I can recall. And I think I would recall that. That seems pretty memorable.
Did you want to?
No. When I lived there, though, we were having sort of like a problem with the shark population being more active and much closer to shore and taking people. And the thing is, if you see a sign, I know in a lot of places they kind of get ignored, people are like whatever, but when you see a sign, do not swim today, because it would vary by the day. Don't swim that day. Because what would happen is,
Good advice.
well, people would, they would kind of monitor the shark activity and be like, they're too close, don't swim today. And
Yeah.
sometimes, it was not really foreseeable, but sometimes people would just sneak past the signs and go into the water and, they would be attacked. I remember, like, I worked with a theater company while I was in Pensacola, and I was like in the back stage, waiting for my turn during a rehearsal or something, and I'm like looking through the newspaper, and they had a whole library back there. That was like my favorite theater company ever. You could just hang out in the library while you waited for you know, your time to go on stage, and it was this really well stocked place. But anyway, I was looking through the newspaper, and like on the very front page, they had taken a picture of a little girl on a stretcher after a shark attack. Like, just fully showed her. And I guess, like, I get that they were trying to show the moment, but that felt so intrusive to me.
I think they should have gotten consent for using her picture.
Yes. So,
Yeah.
you want to go? Do you want me to go?
I will go. You only have 2, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I will go. But before I do, I have known people that have seen skunk apes at Turkey Point and at Crystal River. So these are not dumb creatures. They are where you cannot get to them because it is a federally protected area that is highly, highly restricted.
Yeah.
So they're just trying to live their lives. And,
Yeah, I mean,
people are
the
like,
swamps of
we need to see
Okeechobee
them.
are huge area, and a lot of it is protected area too. And there's a lot of places to get hidden and lost in there,
Oh yeah.
and or eaten by alligators.
Yep. Turkey Point and Crystal River are both, Crystal River is closed, but nuclear power facilities. So they have these great swaths of federally protected land that no one is allowed to go on. It's all fenced in. Um, so you're not getting your average hunters or hikers or anything else like that hanging out there.
Speaking of the alligators, I remember when I lived in Florida, it wasn't quite as prevalent. I think I just lived in a different kind of area. But when I lived in Louisiana, it was so weird that, like, they would just show up in people's yards. They were so, like, they just show up everywhere. I'm scarred.
In their swimming pools.
On like the back porch. Like, I would go for walks at night, like I still do, and people would be like, "That's crazy. You shouldn't do that." And I lived in sort of a rural area, but I mean, not that bad. Not not. I wouldn't expect to see a crocodile there, and they sure did show up in the ditches. Um, yeah, and they're quicker than you think they are.
They are. It's that hissy, clicky, growly noise they make that I don't like it.
Yeah, not a big fan. I don't love
They're
them.
very fast in straight lines, but if you can try to
Zigzag,
make them turn
zigzag.
after you, it's zigzag,
Yeah.
um, or climb a tree. They can't do that.
Okay. I would, but like you couldn't let your pets out or even like be, letting well your children shouldn't be on it anyway. That was a
Oh yeah,
real
no,
sorry, like they would just take them.
yeah,
They do that, yes. And your dogs. That they small dogs are a delicacy for alligators.
yeah. The
Mm.
first apartment complex I lived in after moving out from my parents' house, we had a big retention pond in the back, and there was occasionally alligators would live in it. And they'd be there. They'd have signs posted over: "Do not feed the gators. Do not feed the gators. Do not feed the gators." So what do the idiots do? They feed the gators,
Oh my
and
God,
then
no, really?
someone's dog gets eaten, and animal control is called, and the gator gets taken somewhere else, and the cycle repeats. Or we were coming back from the movie one time, and it looked like someone like there was like a jacket or a sweater or something was lying in the parking lot. So I'd stop and go to
Mhm.
like open my car to go pick it up, and said jacket was, oh no, that was a 6 foot long gator, and it ran off and went under my buddy's truck. It's like, okay, we're going to park over here today, and yeah, watch your feet.
They're so fast, right?
They are surprisingly quick.
Yeah. Not a fan of gators person.
Neither am I. I like the Seminoles. Oh wait, we're not talking about football teams.
Oh my goodness.
But boom.
But
Oh, hilarious.
When I was a baby, we were living in Florida for a little while, a toddler, I guess. And one of the neighbors taught me how to call alligators by sounding like a baby alligator, the little stress noise they make, the little chirp.
what a horrible thing to teach a very carryable away.
Yeah, I'm thinking in hindsight, she may not have liked me very much.
Golly. Here's how you call your own death to you.
Yeah.
Listen closely.
I apparently was really good at it too, but my mother
Wait,
was not pleased.
I wonder why. We have to hear the noise, though.
I can't do it anymore. I don't even remember this story. So, but that's
And it's not necessarily a stress noise so much as it's just the baby's calling for mom because they want either food or other things. But it sounds kind of like a weird sci-fi laser noise,
yeah.
which I'm pretty sure there's been some that have used that exact sound bite for their laser guns.
Can you
It's a
make the
very
sound?
I cannot make the sound.
Okay, so to get us back on track forcibly,
Tell us your story.
I am doing the old jail in St. Augustine.
Ooh, okay.
So in 1878, oil tycoon Henry Flagler decided to move away from New York because his wife had tuberculosis. And the doctors basically said, you need to go somewhere warm. So I feel like we're getting different information from different tuberculosis doctors because one of them told the guy, hey, you have tuberculosis and we think you should move to Colorado about it. And
Yeah,
that
go
is
somewhere dry or go
yeah.
somewhere warm. I think the issue is just to go somewhere else. Is the
I
medical advice.
I really feel
Yeah,
like that's
take your tuberculosis and just go anywhere else but here.
Get out.
Because
That's
I mean,
medical.
Doc Holliday had tuberculosis and he went to Arizona,
and the one who was told to go to Colorado about it got better.
and it was hot and dry, whereas Colorado is cold and dry, and Florida is warm and wet.
Florida
So
is warm and
wet.
wet. So let me tell you that Miss Mary Flagler, she died about it.
Oh.
So Florida
But
was
that is an option.
Florida was not the appropriate answer.
Okay,
She
so wet is out.
wet
Oh,
is out.
that's not the
Yeah,
one.
they were there less than a month when she died, and then very shortly thereafter he got remarried. And okay, so they moved to Jacksonville.
Okay,
Yeah,
so did he like his life? Because it sounds like he's like, I'm going to go to the worst place for you and
I
immediately get remarried.
I don't
This is
know.
shady already.
I don't know. The doctor said that they needed to leave, and they went to Jacksonville, Florida, for Mary, who had tuberculosis. She died very shortly thereafter. He was hoping that the warm weather would help her recover, but they always had
Yeah.
these ideas that if you went to like these special springs, and I guess Florida has a lot of those. I don't know about the
Oh,
Jacksonville
we do.
area
We
specifically.
definitely do. Not the Jacksonville area, but more around the North Central Florida area. There's a lot of springs.
Yeah, we do
Yeah,
too.
but they're full of gators.
Actually, the gators don't usually go in the springs because they usually tend to be much colder than the surrounding water. The gators don't like the moving water so much.
I
They
don't
like
trust it.
lakes and stagnant swamp water.
After Mary died, Flagler remarried and he moved to St. Augustine. And he built speaking of springs, Ponce de Leon Hotel there in St. Augustine. And he decided that he didn't like the jail near his hotel that he had just built. So he was going to build a different jail that didn't look like an eyesore. So he had this new jail built that was
You want
designed
the
and
jail to
everything.
look fancy.
He did. He wanted the jail to look fancy. It was the same guys who built Alcatraz built the new jail, and it was cleverly disguised so it wouldn't throw off the aesthetic of the town in a Romanesque revival style. So it would appear like a very pretty Victorian house, except for the barred windows. So that there was that.
If I ever go to jail, I want to go to a pretty jail.
Oh,
I want it to look like a fancy
this one was only pretty on the outside. You don't want to go to this
bummer.
one. Yeah.
Most jails are not pretty on the inside.
Yeah, they're not. No. So this one was originally built to house up to 72 prisoners. It was built in did I say it was built in 1891? It was built in 1891. 72 prisoners. It was a two-story northern wing of the jail, consisted of the general population, a maximum security area, and the women's section was on the lower level with the kitchens. There was also a two-story wing on the southern side of the jail that consisted of an office for the sheriff and a living quarters for his family. During the time that the jail ran, which it was closed down in 1953, it had 8 men who were hanged from the gallows and an untold number that died from other situations. So many that the facility was actually doctoring the records, so they have no idea exactly how many. But some other reports I read said that the average lifespan for an inmate was 2 years.
Whoa. What were the other circumstances, quote unquote, that were ending the lives? Because that is really suspicious.
It is.
I'm side sheriff a little bit.
There were different sheriffs over this time frame, but it was there was cholera and tuberculosis, of course, which would spread very rapidly in the environment.
Okay.
There were complete lack of medical care. Doctors only visited the jail on days where there would be hangings, and since there were only 8 hangings, that's not many doctor visits.
Why would you visit on days for hangings?
They had to verify that the person hanged was hanged to death.
What a gruesome day.
Yep. So there was malnutrition and poor diet. It was sometimes supplemented by whatever small animals they could catch during their forced labor excursions. And they were really just not fed enough for the whole forced labor situation. There was inadequate sanitation, so there was no running water or plumbing, and they were only given 1 bucket per cell, and there were up to 12 people in a cell on the men's side and 6 on the women's side.
This sounds like a literal hellscape. This
Yeah.
sounds awful.
Plumbing was only installed in the men's cells in 1914 and not in the women's section until the jail closed in 1953 when it was opened as a museum. So the women never had plumbing when it was a jail cell. There was also physical abuse and injuries. The inmates were often sent out on work crews. They didn't have shoes. They suffered open wounds from the manacles or from just the labor that they were doing out in the fields anyway. And there were often harsh physical punishments from the sheriff and deputies. There was overcrowding, which caused problems with disease, and also fights would break out pretty frequently in overcrowded and hunger situations. Overall, the treatment of the inmates was very, very poor. There was actually stockades in the maximum security area, also faced out onto the gallows area. So if you're in the maximum security side, you are witnessing the executions when they occur.
Oh.
Yeah, the fact that there are stockades in there, not necessarily great. Conditions for the jail were obviously very bad, with no bathing facilities and buckets, 1 per cell, and the malnutrition. And this was not any different no matter how your sentence was. So you could be in prison for murder and in the maximum security area, and you were still going to be treated as poorly in the area where you are put for shoplifting. No stockades, and it doesn't face the gallows. That's the only difference. There were reports of deaths via beatings, torture, and starvation, as well as illness. To talk a little bit more about the living quarters, the windows didn't have any glass. The concrete and metal made it kind of a very cold environment when weather's dictated that it would be cold outside. It was also extremely hot, much more often. These are very thick walls, so there's not going to be any heat that's leaving. There were no blankets or pillows provided, and the mattresses was stuffed with Spanish moss, which means that they were infested with red bugs, which means that you are very, very itchy all the time and being devoured alive by little teeny tiny mites. Not great.
Oh, yes. Not fun at all.
Not fun at all. So it was open until 1953, and the building
Wow.
then, yes, it underwent a restoration in 1993 by then owner Henry McDaniel. Um, but in that time between 1953 and 1993 and today, it was used as a museum. So it is still a museum. There are ghost tours, there are day tours, all of that other stuff. There were, in addition to the 72 men, there were up to 12 women there, and there were only 2 cells. They did often keep them full, and the women of the old jail were treated with a profound disregard for their well being. So there were issues of abuse. They were supposedly the prison maids, which meant that they were around the other inmates. They were abused by the wardens, and they were sometimes sold into sex work. They were often arrested for reputation. Many women were not hardened criminals, but they were incarcerated for minor offenses like public drunkenness and vagrancy. Apparently, some were even jailed for lacking a good family name, and they were punished for social status rather than any actual crimes.
They just needed a female there. So
They
they're like, you know what? You look shady. You're under arrest.
basically, you're pretty, you're under arrest. You don't have anybody to speak for you, and we need somebody to mop the floors. You're under arrest. Yeah,
Actually, yeah, that's probably more accurate. You are unprotected.
yeah.
Under arrest.
But that was true for the men too.
I mean, maybe, but
We need more people on our gangs.
I'm guessing they weren't treated quite as badly.
They didn't experience exactly the same bad treatment, but they were also treated very badly. That is basically why people feel like the place is haunted, just because humans were treated so badly and so many of them did die there. The most common haunted activity. So, the most common reported is hearing clanking chains as of someone walking while shackled. And this is reported pretty much weekly by guests saying that they have heard this. There are smells. So there are both good and bad smells. People often report a scent like boiling molasses. It's sickly sweet. It's unpleasantly sweet. And then the bad would be they report the smell of sewage, even though there is no sewage on site.
Yeah, but I bet I bet that smell would
Yeah.
definitely linger with the conditions you've described.
Yeah, so there are reports of dogs, shadowy canine figures, and the sound of barking, even though there are no specific dog stories that are mentioned and no dogs currently live on the premises.
Would dogs have been used by like the warden?
Yeah, I mean, they had their families and everything there. So even the wardens that weren't that bad, they lived there with their families and they had their family dogs and everything. So yes, there were dogs over the years. There were cold spots, cold hands on shoulders. People have reported having their hair pulled. They have reported having cold breaths blown against their skin or into their ears, and whispers that can't be understood whispered into their ears. In the solitary confinement cell, people are challenged to stay in that cell for an hour. They are told to sit in the left corner. And a lot of
Would
people.
you take the challenge?
I would, yeah, absolutely.
Chris, would you?
Probably, but I'm a bit of a skeptic, so
Yeah,
Listen, I'll wait for y'all outside.
that's fine.
that's fine.
So people have
Sure.
claimed that
Joke.
they've seen a shadowy figure that lurks kind of in this area, and that when they are sitting there, that it kind of scurries towards them and tries to tear at them, but it can't actually touch them. Some have said that they've left disappointed, but then they've later noticed that there has been like scratch marks located on them that they didn't feel happen. Some people claim that this is either a man named Sim Jackson, who was hanged in 1908 after he murdered his wife with a straight razor.
Mm.
or Charlie Powell, who was arrested for beheading a man who was spreading rumors about his wife. So you've got two very different people about how they deal with their wives.
Yeah.
But others kind of think that it's just kind of a collective evilness left over from everything that's happened in the prison, everyone that has died there from the maltreatment. It's not really clear. There are experiences reported in the women's cell specifically of a dastardly laugh, a high pitched, sort of sinister giggle. Others have reported hearing a little girl's voice, even though that's most often linked with the sheriff's living quarters, which is next door.
They did not have children there ever, right?
Yes.
I mean, I know you said the families are there, but there were no incarcerated children, right?
I wouldn't doubt that there were children incarcerated there, but they think this was actually a family member of one of the sheriffs. So
Okay.
people have also said that they have been locked inside of a cell until they asked the spirits to let them out, and that it was really scary. That they have seen shadowy figures or floating orbs, especially in the women's block and on the third floor. So that is the old jail, and that's why people think there's a lot of paranormal activity here, is because of how much misery occurred at this place. And they spent a lot of money making it look really nice on the outside and really, really miserable on the inside.
Well, that's horrifying, Sandy. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Wow.
You were expecting something different?
I wasn't. I mean, I wasn't expecting that.
That's fair.
How long have you known me?
I know. I know.
How long have you been doing this podcast with me? We're up to F. You should know these things by now.
Yeah. I mean, I do. I just that was awful.
Yeah.
Mine is not.
Okay, what do you have for us so we can end on a lighter note?
Let's end on a nicer note. But yes, good job. It's awesome. And that was important stories to tell, because those people's meant to not be swept under the rug, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I did the Casa Monica Hotel in St. Augustine also.
Is
And
there a cat?
There was no cat.
Rude.
There was no cat. I know. I looked. No, I looked. Grish brought the cat.
What's his the author with the cats in Florida?
Hemingway?
Hemingway cats, yeah.
With their 6 toes?
Have you been to that house?
Some of them
like,
have.
he left it to the cats.
I've been to St. Augustine several times. I was actually part of one of the pirate raids they did during their pirate sort of festival thing.
That is
You had to
very
sail on a
cool.
sailboat and run through the streets of Old St. Augustine, firing black powder pistols at the city watch.
That sounds.
Yeah, that sounds fun.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
But did you get to pet the descendants of Hemingway's cat?
Yes.
Okay.
How many
So
toes?
yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
They have extra toes.
They're
I'm kind of surprised
polydactyl cats.
there were no. Yeah, some of them have more than 6. Some of them have like upwards like 8 to 9 in some cases.
Yeah, I love polydactyl cats.
Me too. My kitty Saki was polydactyl.
I'm surprised neither of you did the fort in St. Augustine.
Why didn't you? You could have done that.
I wanted to do cryptids because you guys always do ghosts. I wanted to do cryptids, and then I was like,
that was fair. I like the cryptid contribution.
Well, we can have you come back and do forts later.
You gotta
Yes.
do this again?
The Casa Monica Hotel in St. Augustine was built in 1888 by then owner architect Franklin Smith. It changed hands 4 months later and has been used over the years as a variety of things, including a barracks and a courthouse during different points. So yeah, it's had a lot of history. Paranormal stories have been passed down through decades. It has been documented in hotel logs, testimonies, and travel writers' shared experiences. adventures, like their experiences. It's even become so common for staff to have experiences. Like a lot of the experiences came from staff that no longer work there. And it became so common for them that the housekeeping department is allowed to work in pairs to clean the rooms in order to make them feel safer. A helpful presence is what was mentioned several times when I was doing initial research. So, that's what I went looking for. I'm like, I want to know who the helpful ghost is. And I ended up finding several stories, but not anything particularly helpful. I called the hotel front desk and I spoke with an employee who had been there for about a year. Asked specifically the question about the housekeepers working in pairs, and she did not answer directly. And there's lots of reasons to work in pairs, honestly, from people, ghosts, like whatever. There's lots of reasons. I was a hotel maid for a short bit of time, and people are weird. There's just some weird experiences. So I can see, why having someone with you would be nice. She said, and I quote, "We are not haunted at all," which was a weird thing to hear. I was like, oh, well, maybe it's just like commercialized or a lot of, fun ghost stories that are just. And I asked her why she thought people were still discussing having experiences, like really recent. The experience that I'm gonna disclose more personally was recent, in the last couple of years. And then there's lots of experiences like that were like I generally found, and they were like kind of through the years, and in some rooms in particular, and they were so specific. And she wasn't sure, but she had had no personal experiences and repeated several times, "We are not haunted at all." It was like a script. "We are not haunted at all." She was so nice. She was super nice, and I thanked her for taking her time to answer, my silly questions. And she said, "Oh, those questions aren't silly at all. I mean, if you're not haunted, they are kind of silly questions, I think, but maybe they're just common."
I mean, if they're listed as a haunted place, yeah.
Right. And she said, like a catchphrase, guys, "The only thing we are haunted by is hospitality."
Oh gosh, that's so yucky, cheesy.
It was a strange encounter, but again, I was like, okay, well, if she didn't have any personal experiences, she told me that. A lot of the experiences that I found, though, were of X, specifically the housekeepers. Gonna leave that there. You can do what you want with it. They are not haunted at all. So in short, the Casa Monica Hotel is not haunted at all. For entertainment purposes, I still did the research, and I'd like to share the experiences that I found.
Okay.
The one that I'm gonna discuss, like it was some documented as late as 2023, and you can just decide for yourself. Glowing lights have been reported on the third floor, and many people talk about having the sensation that someone is watching or moving about around them when nobody else is there. A lady in a flowing white dress, seen often, mostly on the fourth floor. She sort of hovers and then disappears. She has been caught in photographs, so I went looking for the photographs, but I wasn't able to find. I was also not able to find any speculation about who she may have been. So she's just a random woman floating about. Room 511 has a darker story attached to it. It is said to be especially haunted because a man checked in, and when he failed to check out, housekeepers checked on him and found that he had ended his life. It's referred to in some places as the hanged man's room, and this is the main room that housekeepers will not clean alone because they feel watched. Guests and housekeepers both have reported feeling cold spots there, feeling sudden drafts that don't make sense, and hearing footsteps when they are alone. This room and room 411 are considered the quote-unquote most haunted. And room 411 had lots of stories. Several past guests that documents describing waking up to see several figures standing around in 1920s attire. Faucets turn on and lights flicker by themselves in this room. Those are the only interactions, though, have occurred. Like, they don't report any other interaction with the figures when they're here. They just wake up in the middle of a 1920s party. The Flagler Suite has a child-sized handprint that shows up on the bathroom mirror randomly. It's been reported several times by various guests. A former housekeeper reports that one day she knocked on the door to clean that room, and a voice said from behind the door, "We've been expecting you." She thought it was the current guest and opened the door. Believe me, people have said much stranger things to me when I knocked on the door to clean it. But when she opened the door, nobody was there.
That's not good.
Right? And I'm out. We've been expecting you. No, you didn't. I heard nothing. And obviously, if you've been expecting me, there should be snacks if you wanted to lure me all the way in. Like, if you're going to be creepy, follow it up with something to get me home, or just don't bother. Ponce de Leon Suite is said to be the most common place to see the woman that I mentioned earlier in white just floating around. Staff also say that the radio turns on by itself in that suite when no one could possibly be operating it. And I was not able to talk to any of the staff beyond the front desk. Very nicely explained that there was absolutely no haunting there. But I did find specific accounts of guests who stayed there very recently and had experiences in that room specifically. And it was a couple. They stayed 2 nights in half of the suite. It had been split into 2 rooms because it's so big. And every time that they would return to the room, the clock radio would be playing music. And they kept trying to change the settings to make it stop because, maybe somebody set an alarm and, it just went off, but it just kept doing it. They just kept trying to get it to stop. I think even unplugging it. And it did. Every time they came back, it was playing music. And none of their efforts worked. It just kept turning itself on for the duration of their stay every time they came back. The sink faucet in the bathroom also was a menace, just turning itself on. And they said they felt watched through their entire time there, especially at night. The bed would move with them in it, like it was being shoved, like a really sudden shove to the bed. And when they turned the lights off for the last time, as they were leaving to check out, they've got their bags, the doors open, they go to turn the lights off and turn to leave. There was this huge bang, like something large and heavy, hit the floor from inside the room. And, obviously they're like, okay, we're done. They leave. My favorite thing that she said about her time there, this hotel was gorgeous and I never want to go back there. I thought that was funny. And room 318 has some stories that mention a Confederate soldier's ghost. His name and story has been lost to time, but he's been seen walking or standing in or near room 318. The ballroom has had explained waltz music playing, and some people have claimed to see figures dancing there and in the lobby. And when they are seen, they're always described as wearing 1920s style clothes. There is a Spanish soldier that also pops up in the ballroom, and he's been credited with the sound of disembodied footsteps in that space, but he also has been seen as well. Supposedly, he died in a duel, and while there is a general history of dueling there during certain time frames, I could not find documentation of a particular duel event in that space. It doesn't necessarily mean it wasn't. I don't know if it would have been reported, but yeah, I couldn't find it, and so we don't know who he is. Those are the stories that have passed down, and you can decide for yourself, is the Casa Monica Hotel haunted? I don't know. There's some entertaining stories that have come from it.
Very cool. I still can't believe you actually talk to people.
Yeah. I mean, she was nice.
I mean, just in general.
But
ever.
Just general ever. I talk to you.
Yeah, I'm not people.
You're not people.
Grish isn't people.
I love when you're like, I want to be alone. I'm like, oh, I can leave then. You're like, not you. You don't count.
The nicest version of don't count at all.
That's the best introvert compliment ever.
It really is. You don't sap my battery. You don't count. You can stay.
Yay. So we have a Patreon. Do you know what you're going to do for that Patreon episode? That's where we can do like some, I was going to say darker things, but my gosh, Sandy.
I mean, Zandy's here, so that's pretty much a given.
More details about the darker things.
Yeah.
Because it was a censored version, so it would be uncensored.
Uncensored.
That's
Do you know what you're going to do?
No.
Okay. I have an idea for that one.
Where are we going next?
That's a good question.
Georgia?
I think Georgia. Yeah.
I don't think there's another letter between F and G, and I don't think there's any other G states other than Georgia.
It's like we're going to Georgia. That is our episode. We will see you guys next time in Georgia.
Georgia!
So thank you for joining us, and let's all thank Grish for being with us today.
Thank you, Grish.
Thank you, Grish.
It's fun being here with you guys.
Aww.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.